If you were a kid in the 90s, reading was a pretty big deal. You had the Scholastic Book Fair every year at school that was packed full of awesome stuff. You had the Book It program that gave free Pizza Hut pizza to encourage reading. And you had the arrival of the Accelerated Reader program at most schools. Kids everywhere were either already big into reading or being pushed into reading from every angle. This put a huge emphasis on both authors and publishers to create and produce books that appealed to children more than ever before. From choose-your-own adventure books to book novelizations based on popular movies and even syndicated shows produced to encourage reading, books were really starting to become more exciting for kids and young adults. Based on the huge success of books like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and various other similarly themed books, young adult horror was a market that needed to be expanded upon. So in 1992, an up-and-coming author, RL Stine, who had previously had success with his Fear Street series and similar books such as The Babysitter and Beach House, decided to introduce a new horror series aimed directly at a young adult audience. Little did he know at this point that this series would become one of the most iconic of all time. So sit back, dim the lights, and experience firsthand, from myself and numerous fans of the series, the history of Goosebumps. It's almost impossible to tell the story of the iconic book series without talking a little bit about the man behind it all. That's why we're going to go back to October 8th, 1943, where in Columbus, Ohio, a baby by the name of Robert Lawrence Stine was being born. Born the son of Louis Stine, a shipping clerk, and Anne Feinstein, R.L. Stine grew up in Bexley, Ohio. His love of writing started to develop at the age of 9 when he found an old typewriter in his attic.
I was scared of everything. I was a really fearful kid. And I think that's why I ended up staying in my room typing all day, typing stories.
He immediately started typing stories, creating his own joke books, and drawing comic books. After being hooked on creative writing from the time spent with this found typewriter, Stine attended Ohio State University and graduated in 1965 with a Bachelor of Arts in English. While at Ohio State, Stine edited the OSU humor magazine, The Sundial, for 3 out of his 4 years there. Shortly after graduating from OSU, Stine moved to New York City to pursue his career as a writer. At the beginning of his career, Stine wrote dozens of humor books for kids under the name Jovial Bob Stine and created the humor magazine Bananas. Bananas ran for 72 issues between 1975 and 1984.
Scholastic gave me my own humor magazine, which was my life's ambition, to have my own national humor magazine. And I did a magazine called Bananas, a very crazy, mad magazine type of thing in full color, and I did that for 10 years. And I thought, man, this is it. I've done what I always wanted to do.
Shortly after ending Bananas, Stine wrote the book that would start his journey to stardom, his first horror novel called Blind Date. After the success of this novel, Stine was bit by the horror bug and went on to follow up with other novels in the genre, such as The Babysitter, Beach House, and The Girlfriend. At this same time, he was also co-creator and head writer for the Nickelodeon children's show Eureka's Castle.
Eureka's Castle.
In 1989, Stine decided he wanted to expand upon the horror genre and write books for a teen audience. This series became known as the Fear Street series. Starting with the first Fear Street book, The New Girl, this series became extremely successful, appearing on many bestseller lists and selling more than 80 million copies.
I was writing Fear Street, one a month, killing off teenagers. And it was a YA series and doing really well and was doing great.
Following the enormous success of the Fear Street books, Stine's publisher Parachute Press wanted more and came to Stine with the idea to take the approach he had to teen horror with the Fear Street series and apply it to a different audience, writing scary books for younger children. After a lot of urging from both his wife and the co-founder of Parachute Press, Stine decided to pursue the idea of a horror book series focused on the 7 to 12 age range.
And my wife and her business partner, they have a company called Parachute Press. And they said, we have to try a horror series for 7 to 12-year-olds. No one has ever done it before. And I said, no way. I don't want to screw up Fear Street. You know, the audience will be too young, Fear Street won't be cool anymore. I don't want to do it. And I refuse to do it. Can you imagine? And great decisions and publishing. And they kept after me, said, no, we have to try it. And then finally I said, all right.
The name for the series came to Stine after he saw a TV station's ad and TV guide that stated, "It's Goosebumps week on Channel 11.
And one day I'm reading TV Guide, and in those days, they had the TV listings in the middle of the magazine, everything that was on. And I'm looking through TV Guide, and there's a little ad at the bottom of the page. It said, it's Goosebumps week on Channel 11. And I just stared at it. I knew it was perfect. Channel 11. We'll call it Channel 11. That's a horrible joke. I apologize. No, I'm sorry. But that's where the name came from. I thought, it's perfect. It's scary, it's funny, it's age appropriate. We'll try it.
At the beginning of Goosebumps, Stine initially agreed to a 6-book deal with publisher Scholastic, but that number quickly grew to a total of 62 books in the original series, with the first book being Welcome to Dead House, released in July 1992.
Second grade book fair, Rutherford College Elementary, the Scholastic book fair, matter of fact. My grandmother gave me some money that morning and all pumped up, go to the Scholastic book fair, get some books, some other stuff. So I was tooling around in there for a while, found Goosebumps. It's like a horror movie, had some cool looking covers on it. I got Welcome to Dead House and The Haunted Mask first because I thought they looked the coolest. Didn't know what to expect. Was pretty happy with the purchase. The covers look cool. Horror books for, a 8-9-year-old kid. And then with the extra money, I bought some of those cool little triangle erasers, and then the pins were the lead feeds from the top to the bottom. 'Cause that's what you had to buy with your extra money,
Originally aimed at girls, the series went on to be aimed at both boys and girls after Stine realized half of his fan mail was being sent from boys. Following the release of the first novel in the series, the books immediately became popular, selling 1 million copies a month soon after they first appeared, and 4 million copies a month by the mid-1990s.
I can remember going out begging my parents to buy me the newest Goosebumps book. I couldn't wait to get home and read through those pages. I blew through so many of those books as a kid, and I just was so pumped at every twist and turn that RL Stine was able to throw my way.
In 1996, the book series accounted for almost 15% of Scholastic's annual revenue. Throughout the run of Goosebumps, stories varied wildly, from haunted houses to werewolves to living dolls. There was a scary story for any young horror fan.
Goosebumps has always had this sort of undercurrent of darkness. Even though these are books which are written for children, they do have a very, very sort of dark tone, and you could replace the childish aspects with very, very adult themes, and you could have very, very scary stories.
Featuring protagonists that varied just as much as the antagonists in the story made it so that any young reader had some character that they could identify with.
You can see the werewolf of famous swamp was always a favorite. It's the young demon. And of course, all of the haunted mass series. They help form the demon in front of you. Reader beware, you're in for a scare!
As the series grew, collecting became a big part of the series. From the bright, wild colors to the amazing artwork created originally by Tim Jacobus, Goosebumps were treasured items that kids snagged quickly from Scholastic book fairs.
What's up, guys? Russ Lyman here, and Goosebumps is definitely a series I loved reading growing up. My favorite one would have to be The Haunted Mask here. This one definitely gave me inspiration to write one of my own short stories when I was in middle school. just reading them is great. You can complete one in a day. The print is pretty big and they're not too long. One thing that I do love is the bright colors of all the covers in here. Pink, bright yellow. This one here, the Haunted Mask 2. Everything pops really well.
After the massive success of the Goosebumps initial release, it wasn't hard to find Goosebumps merchandise. From lunchboxes, to school supplies, to shirts, to even bedding. Goosebumps was everywhere and kids were eating it up.
I know somewhere deep within those boxes in the closet behind me, I know there is a videotape somewhere of me on my first day of kindergarten back in the 90s. And I was more worried about my father actually filming my backpack, my Goosebump backpack, than I was of him actually getting him to film me getting in the actual bus.
There was even a wildly popular Goosebumps fan club.
The first time I saw Goosebumps, I wanted it because it was scary and I love scary stuff. So it gives you a shiver down your bones and it kind of freaks you out a little bit. You know, I like Goosebumps because I like to collect them with my dad, and he used to read him when he was younger, and he introduced them to me, and I like to do what my dad did because all he does is cool, you know.
After the books and the merchandise, there was another avenue to go: television.
Definitely remember the theme music. Dun 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 dun. It has a great intro to the show. I had completely forgotten about the show until a couple years ago when I was trying to feed my love for Halloween and stumbled across it on Netflix and started watching each episode. I think I've made it through a couple seasons at this point, and it is still spectacular, even in its 90s quirkiness. My favorite episode is Night of the Living Dummy 2. Now it's named Part 2 because the book would be Part 1, Night of the Living Dummy. So Slappy the ventriloquist doll is as creepy as hell and still is one of the most memorable characters of the series, and definitely my favorite.
On October 27th, 1995, a Goosebumps anthology series was introduced to the Fox network. The series mainly featured plots based on the Goosebumps books and aired in over 100 countries.
I used to love watching Goosebumps on TV when I was a kid. Never really read a lot of the books. I read a few of them when I was in elementary school and middle school, but I'm not a big reader. I have never been a really big reader, but I did love the TV show, especially the Night of the Living Dummy episodes and One Day in Horrorland. Of course, everybody loves those. But yeah, I loved Goosebumps, the TV show, the theme song, everything. It was just so perfect.
It was the #1 rated children's TV show for 3 years in the United States.
Good evening, folks, and a hearty welcome to our drive-in theater. We have a wonderful evening's entertainment lined up for you, one that will provide several hours of pleasurable relaxation and diversion for you and your family. Did you fail to dress up for tonight's show? No tie, an old shirt and slacks, a house dress? Well, don't give it a thought. We're glad you came as you are. We just want you to enjoy yourselves.
For years, rumors of a Goosebumps movie circled. The first attempt at a Goosebumps film was in 1998, which was going to be produced by Tim Burton of Beetlejuice and Nightmare Before Christmas fame. However, the film did not materialize since they could not find a script they liked or determine which book or monster to adapt. 10 years later, in 2008, Columbia Pictures acquired rights to create a Goosebumps film. They felt that the individual books in the series were too short to adapt into a film, so they chose instead to do a fake biographical film in which RL Stine writes a book and all the monsters within it become real. This film eventually released on October 16, 2015, starring Jack Black as RL Stine.
I really love the recent Goosebumps movies with Jack Black, and with a lack of Halloween family movies these days, it really fills in the gap. If you've never watched Goosebumps show or the movies, I highly recommend it. I think they're fantastic.
It released a positive fanfare and also produced a similarly received sequel.
I have to admit, those Jack Black movies were also kind of fun. I know they get a lot of crap, I don't know why, but they're a lot of fun. I mean, they go straight to the point. They do their job fairly well.
Goosebumps eventually made the leap to various other forms of media, being adapted into video games ranging from PC to console to mobile.
Make it to the end, you're in for a shocking surprise. Jump into the all-new Goosebumps adventure.
Masked Mutant, which was sort of a first-person shooter without actually being a shooter, but you basically just go around the Masked Mutant lair and what's not in. Well, basically it's a video game version of my favorite episode, which was Attack of the Masked Mutant.
A comic book series behind Goosebumps was also released initially in 2006 and had various spin-offs released in 2017, 2018, and 2019. Goosebumps became so popular that it was adapted into a stage play in 1998 and even a stage musical in 2016.
Do you seek out the spark of danger in the dark when something cold and stark's around the corner?
Do you thrive on the thrill of that familiar chill when someone's doomed and still you cannot warn her?
Also in 1997, an attraction based on the series, the Goosebumps Horrorland Fright Show and Funhouse, opened at Disney MGM Studios, New York Street.
I liked the fact that it kept you going. It was so sci-fi thriller, and it just made you want to get the next book after the next book. One of my favorite memories was when I met RL Stine at C2E2. He's such a great author. Thank you for making such a great series and for being a great person.
Although Goosebumps initially released back in 1992, this book series has transcended generations and still remains as popular today as it was back then.
My name is Nick, and honestly, I would like to think that the Goosebumps was what got me into horror as a genre, whether that be books, TV shows, movies, games, any of that. And I think to this day, the books still hold up very well, and if you've never read them, for some odd reason, you should definitely check them out.
As of 2008, the Goosebumps series maintains an 82% brand awareness among children 7 to 12.
It inspired me so much as an adult when I started writing myself. I wanted to find a way to be able to do what he was able to do, to get kids to read the way that he got me to read. And so when I was at one of the toughest points of being a writer, when you get stuck, I was lucky enough to be able to take RL Stine's online class. And it was just an eye-opener. It taught me so many great little tips that I needed, and I needed to hear one of his most valuable lessons. Have fun with it, because if you're having fun with it, kids will have fun with it. And so that's what really helped me get through and create this whole series, and to create something that I hope, resembles and gives other people that, that homage to Goosebumps, and to remember what those books did to them as a kid. So Fright Vision would not exist without RL Stine and Goosebumps. And it inspired me so much that I reached out to Tim Jacobus, the creator of all those Goosebumps covers, and I begged him, please, can you create something for Fright Vision? And he created this kid with the scared goggles, and it was just this great picture, and it just has all the feels of Goosebumps. And I can't say this enough, and this is, directly to RL Stine and Tim Jacobus. I just want to thank you for writing all of those great books, for designing all of those great covers, and for inspiring me to read as a kid, and for making me able to write and create my own series as an adult. So thank you.
It is listed as the #2 best-selling children's book series of all time, and as Scholastic's best-selling children's book series of all time.
Goosebumps is good because it kind of encapsulates horror, a little bit of science fiction, and it puts it into an easy to understand package for kids. It's a great opener to get kids interested in things that are a little bit scary, and sort of exploration is very, very important for children. So I think that the Goosebumps series of books are absolutely incredible, and they are definitely worth a read. And if you're a parent and if you've got kids yourself, I'd highly recommend reading them.
By 2014, according to Scholastic, there were about 350 million copies of Goosebumps books sold in 32 languages, and the book currently sells about 2 million copies annually.
Goosebumps was great. It was a great series, and it really helped me and my friends in school have a common bond over something when we all found out what it was and got into it. Like, we could all be like, hey man, did you read this one? That was good. Oh man, this one, did you read chapter 3 in this book? It was sick. So it was pretty cool. It was development in my childhood. So, but I recommend anybody going back and read. I'm pretty sure they'd still be good today. Go back and read those books. But for anybody that hasn't, they're probably pretty easy reads now for adults.
From inspiring kids to read, kids to learn about the horror genre, and even helping to build a generation of horror fans.
Was like little kid horror. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly what Goosebumps is always supposed to be. And knowing now that I've grown into a full-blown adult horror fan, it's not surprising that I always loved Goosebumps.
Goosebumps is something more than just a scary book series. It was, and still is, a story that shows young scared kids can become the hero.